It's easy to believe that communication problems come from other people. Something someone said, a misunderstanding, a difficult personality, a knee-jerk emotional reaction. Sometimes it's true, yet a surprising amount of communication stress begins somewhere much quieter, inside our own head. Think about this. During any conversation, your mind is constantly producing thoughts. Some are useful, some help you understand what the other person's saying, others are simply reactions that appear automatically. And we know that not every thought that appears during a conversation is helpful, right? Some quietly push you towards reactions that make communication worse. A single unnoticed thought can quietly change the tone of an interaction. And if that thought goes unnoticed, it can trigger defensiveness, frustration, or misunderstanding before the conversation has even had a chance to fully develop. That's why in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a simple mental shift that can dramatically reduce that kind of communication stress. And once you notice it happening, the whole situation starts to make more sense. You don't have to believe every thought your brain produces during a conversation. When you stop reacting to every thought that appears, your communication becomes noticeably calmer and more deliberate. Because many communication problems begin with a mental habit that usually goes unnoticed. Think about how quickly thoughts appear during a conversation. Someone says something unexpected, and within milliseconds, a thought appears. That sounded rude. Another thought follows. They must be criticizing me. Perhaps the sentence sounded dismissive. Maybe the comment felt critical. And before the other person has even finished speaking, the mind has already started constructing a story about what the comment meant. From that moment forward, the conversation begins to change. Instead of listening carefully, the mind starts preparing its response. It begins defending, explaining, correcting. Little by little, the actual conversation fades beneath the chain reaction of thoughts. It's easy to assume this reaction is unavoidable. In the moment, those thoughts can feel like an accurate picture of what's happening. Yet most of the time, they're just interpretations. They're guesses that the brain makes while trying to fill in missing information. Sometimes those guesses are correct. Often they're just incomplete. When every thought is treated as accurate, communication quickly becomes reactive and tense. Over time, that tension creates unnecessary stress in conversations. The problem isn't the conversation itself. The problem is assuming every thought that appears during the conversation needs to be followed. Once that assumption changes, the entire tone of a conversation can shift. Now that we've seen how quickly interpretations form, it helps to look at what's actually happening in the mind during a conversation. Take a moment to consider what happens inside your mind during a conversation. Words are spoken, information is being exchanged, and at the same time, your mind is producing thoughts about what you hear. Some help you understand the other person, others are quick reactions, some are judgments or assumptions. Most of them appear automatically. And the moment a thought appears, the mind often begins following it. For example, they said that because they don't respect my work. They think I made a mistake. They're trying to challenge me. But a thought is only a mental event. It isn't automatically accurate, and it doesn't automatically require a response. Once you begin noticing thoughts this way, your response inside the conversation begins to change. Instead of reacting immediately, you start noticing the thought itself, and that small shift creates space inside the conversation. That space allows you to respond more thoughtfully rather than reacting automatically. During a conversation, a thought can appear and immediately feel convincing. This person is attacking me. This comment was disrespectful. They clearly disagree with me. Thoughts like these often feel like an accurate description of what is happening, yet many of them are interpretations rather than facts. The brain is trying to predict meaning before the conversation's finished. They appear quickly and feel personal, which is why they rarely get questioned. But thoughts can be noticed the same way you notice other things. For example, you hear a sound. You recognize the sound. Maybe you ignore it. Maybe you respond to it. A thought appears. You notice it. Maybe you ignore it. Maybe you respond to it. When you begin recognizing a thought as simply a thought, something important changes. Instead of reacting immediately, you begin noticing the reaction forming. This is a reaction thought. That brief moment of awareness interrupts the automatic response. And that moment of awareness creates space inside that conversation. Instead of being pulled along by the thought, you begin observing it. That distance creates a choice. You can decide how you want to respond rather than letting the thought decide for you. So the practical question becomes, how do you actually do this during a real conversation? Here's a simple 3-step practice you can start using right away. The steps are easy to remember and you can use them in the middle of a conversation. Step 1, notice the thought. During a conversation, thoughts appear quickly. A reaction thought might say, "That comment sounded dismissive." Instead of reacting immediately, pause long enough to notice the thought itself. You notice that a reaction just appeared. That brief moment of awareness interrupts the automatic response because you're now aware of what triggered it. Step 2, label the thought. Once you notice the thought, give it a quick label. This is a reaction thought. This is an assumption. This is a defensive thought. Labeling the thought helps you see it more clearly. Instead of getting pulled into the story, you begin recognizing the pattern behind the reaction rather than the reaction itself. Step 3, choose your response. Now, ask yourself a simple question. Does reacting to this thought improve the conversation? If the answer is no, allow the thought to pass without acting on it. Instead, return your attention to what the other person's actually saying. You listen, you ask a question, you respond intentionally rather than reactively. With practice, this habit can completely change how conversations unfold because the conversation is now guided by attention rather than reaction. To see how this works in a real situation, consider a simple example. Imagine someone at work says, "I think we need to revisit this part of the project." The thought appears almost instantly, they think I did something wrong. If that thought goes unchecked, the conversation can quickly become defensive. You begin explaining, justifying, correcting, yet the other person may simply be offering a suggestion. Now, consider the same moment, but this time using the observer approach. The thought appears, they think I did something wrong, but this time you notice it. That's an interpretation. A reaction thought just appeared. Instead of defending, you stay curious. You ask a simple question. What part would you like to revisit? Now the conversation stays productive. The difference wasn't the other person. The difference was how you responded to the thought that appeared in your mind. Now, that example may seem simple, but it highlights something important. A single shift in how you handle a thought can completely change the direction of a conversation. That leads to the key insight behind everything we've just discussed. One idea can change how people communicate. You don't control which thoughts appear during a conversation. Your brain produces them automatically. Yet you do control something far more important. You control where your attention goes. If every reaction thought receives your attention, conversations quickly become tense and defensive. But when your attention becomes intentional, communication becomes calmer and clearer. Thoughts are still going to appear. They will simply stop controlling the direction of the conversation. And once you begin practicing this shift, the benefits become noticeable. Learning to observe your thoughts during conversations doesn't eliminate disagreements. People are still going to have difference of opinions. There's still going to be misunderstandings from time to time. But what changes is how you handle those moments. Instead of reacting automatically, you gain the ability to pause, to listen, to respond with intention. That shift alone can transform the quality of your conversations because many communication problems are not caused by the words being spoken. They're caused by the thoughts that appear in response to those words. When those thoughts are observed instead of followed, communication becomes calmer, clearer, and far less stressful. Now, there's one more communication habit that quietly creates tension in conversations. It's the habit of over-explaining. Many people assume that explaining more will make them sound clearer. Yet over-explaining often makes people trust you less. In this video, I explain why over-explaining can actually make people appear less confident and how to avoid this common communication trap. Click on this video on your screen to watch that next. I'll see you there.